cryptic humility.
All right. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Cryptic Humility. My name is Vanessa Hurley. I am your host and guide. We are on episode 4, and today we're going to be talking about consensus mechanisms. So I woke up bright and early this morning to find out that TikTok did in fact get banned. I don't know how to feel about it because honestly, I was looking forward to being able to promote this podcast on TikTok. I think TikTok is phenomenal for businesses, for marketing purposes, for information purposes. I do know that TikTok can be dangerous with the data that's being shared and the influence that it has. And I do agree that at times it's not benefiting our society for the better. I look at the younger generation, like the generation right under me, and I can see how we can influence them positively and negatively. I think it all depends on what your direction is in life. You know, what are you using the app for? Are you using the app for business, for marketing, for your hobbies, for your talents, for creativity? That I love. I do know it can also be, which I'm not gonna lie, I get invested sometimes, but it can be very messy. I can see how it can kind of be messy and not lead our younger generations in the best direction possible as well. But anyways, I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think, and I'm mainly talking about this because we're not promoting stuff on TikTok anymore, so obviously you won't be able to find us there. I do hope Donald Trump figures out how we can reinstate TikTok and welcome TikTok back, because I think it is doing more good than harm. I think it would be nice if the United States had more control over it, or we had somebody that bought it for the United States, or whatever it may be. But I think that it is a good impact for those who are using it wisely. So, for the sake of today, we're going to be talking about consensus mechanisms. In my last episode, we were talking about blockchain technology. Today, I kind of want to take it a little bit of a step further and talk about proof of work in a little more detail, proof of stake, and proof of activity. We'll go over the advantages and disadvantages of both, and then after that, I want to talk about a coin. It's not relatively new, but I think it's relatively relevant to what we're talking about in this podcast episode and where we may go in the future with crypto. So, what proof of work, proof of stake, and proof of activity all have in common is they are consensus mechanisms, meaning that they are programs used and principles followed on the blockchain that helps keep the blockchain decentralized in the fact of trying to verify and confirm transactions. So what all three of these have in common is they are programs, principles, or rules that are followed on the blockchain, depending which blockchain you're on, that allows verification of transactions, legitimacy of transactions, and the decentralization of regulation. So for proof of work, instead of having the bank regulate things or the government regulate things, or even if Bitcoin's blockchain had a regulatory department of people that were regulating and verifying transactions, we instead have miners. So we've talked a little bit in the last couple episodes about crypto mining, but proof of work is crypto mining. It's essentially the same thing. Crypto mining or crypto miners are who are using proof of work. Proof of work was one of the first consensus mechanisms to ever come out on Bitcoin's blockchain. And proof of work is essentially saying that the crypto miners that are doing the work, which we're going to talk about in a minute, are confirming and verifying that the work that they have done has been done honestly. So let's start getting into some examples here. Proof of work has a majority, hundreds of thousands of miners that have special computing software, which we'll talk about in advantages and disadvantages, because there are some disadvantages there. But they have a special software that allows them to mine crypto. So in our last episode, we were talking about blockchain technology and proof of work in blockchain technology. Let's say a block holds 100 transactions. After you've done your 100 transactions, the block storage is closed and your block is sent out onto the blockchain. A crypto miner can access that block, access the last hash, which we talked about, a hash is a long string of numbers that miners are essentially solving for. But in the previous block, a miner would receive that last block's hash, the nonce, which is the number only used once, which is the number that they're kind of altering and trying to adjust to meet a matching hash. They'll receive a timestamp and the difficulty target. So I want to try to explain this in the easiest terms to you. So the most basic way to understand this is crypto miners are gathering information through the block, whether that be the previous hash data, your transactions in this block, the nonce, and the timestamp, and the difficulty target. The difficulty target is like the sequence of numbers and how many hashes per second the crypto miner is trying to solve for. It basically has to be below the blockchain criteria, like below meaning less than or meeting the blockchain criteria. So what the blockchain is looking for in that specific amount of hashes per second. This is really complex. If you are not trying to be a crypto miner, you don't need to understand it this much to get what crypto mining is. But crypto miners, once they receive your block, it takes about 10 minutes for them to compute different hashes that will match and solve the mathematical puzzle. So I was doing a lot of reading in on this, and some people say that crypto miners are solving mathematical puzzles, and others will tell you that they are just generating and kind of like randomly guesstimating specific hashes, basically just trying different hashes and adjusting the nonce in between that to get a matching hash that will match your block's criteria. So depending on the previous transactions of the previous block, which will have a hash, plus the nonce that you receive in the block header, the timestamp, the kind of Bitcoin software that is updated to this point on the blockchain, and in all that information, you are solving for a hash that meets the blockchain's criteria, meaning it's meeting the difficulty target either exactly as it is or less than. So, and that all comes into how many hashes per second, and it's a very complex mathematical process. But in simplest of terms, you have your transactions. They get sent out into the blockchain. Crypto miners, which are just hundreds of thousands of people that either trade and buy and sell crypto and Bitcoin themselves and have special mining software and equipment where they can go ahead and use all this mathematical information that's given to them on the blockchain to solve for the missing hash. And it takes about 10 minutes because there are like hundreds of thousands of people trying to solve this hash. And as there are less and less Bitcoin to be rewarded to miners, because as we talked about in the last podcast episode, crypto miners, after they verify transactions, they receive rewards. They receive Bitcoin and other native coins depending on what blockchain they're on. But as this number gets less and less, the difficulty target gets higher and higher for crypto miners to try to solve and add new blocks to the blockchain because there's less Bitcoin to be rewarded in the end. So proof of work has a lot of advantages and disadvantages. Number one, we can always be ensured that there will never be any issues with decentralization. In simplicity, proof of work is a group of people that are monitoring and verifying the transactions that are happening within each block. And as soon as that verification process is done, as they are solving the mathematical puzzle or generating specific hashes that meet the block's criteria that are below the difficulty target that the blockchain is looking for, and you have to be, I swear to God, you have to be absolutely brilliant to be a crypto miner. But proof of work, to simplify again, is crypto mining. And once that block has been solved, we found the hash that is needed, it is then accepted and it is sent out onto the blockchain and it is created in that blockchain sequence of blocks. All right, let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of proof of work. So as great as proof of work is because it's keeping everybody decentralized, the biggest issue is the computing power. So because Bitcoin is so in demand right now and all of the world is invested in it, I mean, obviously not all of the world, but a good chunk of people around the globe are invested and interested in Bitcoin and crypto, and it's new and it's trending and everybody's involved in it. Bitcoin follows proof of work consensus mechanism. Oh, and what I wanted to say about consensus mechanism is the reason why proof of work, proof of stake, and proof of activity are all called a consensus mechanism is because once that block is confirmed and verified, the whole network is reaching consensus, meaning that all miners that are verifying transactions are agreeing and placing the block on the blockchain, confirming that the work has been done honestly. Proof of work is just simply exactly what it is. Crypto miners are doing the work and solving these mathematical problems or generating hashes based off the information that they are given in your block of transactions and also in the previous hash of the previous block to solve what the blockchain and the difficulty target is on the blockchain at that time. But anyways, back to my point is that it takes so much computing power to use proof of work as a consensus mechanism. And that's because miners can't just mine on their computer. You need specialized computer software, which I want to save to talk about when I end up posting a podcast episode about crypto mining. I'll give you all the software that you need and computing power and how it all works there. But generally, I want to say that it takes mining plants, it takes specific hard drives, specific software. It takes so much computing power to solve and generate the missing hash that crypto miners are looking for to verify transactions. I mean, clearly it's not an easy process if it takes about 10 minutes for a block to get confirmed. I mean, with technology today and thinking about how fast it is for things to come into our bank account, especially when Cash App or Venmo are verifying transactions and verifying that things are going on, it's almost instant. So that just goes to show how much computing power goes into proof of work to keep regulation and verification decentralized as possible. So I actually did some research on this because I was really curious, and obviously if you've watched the first podcast episode, I did a directed study in crypto, and it takes as much computing power and electricity in crypto mining as a small country like Poland or Switzerland for the year. Which, when you think about that, how much it takes to keep the lights on in Poland or Switzerland for a year, and not even just the lights, everything that includes electricity, that's how much it takes for crypto mining every single year, computing wise, electricity wise. That is a great amount. And can you only imagine that's just in Bitcoin. As crypto becomes revolutionary in our society, as crypto becomes more prominent in our society, and we're using Web3 more and we're trusting decentralization more, it's just not going to be sustainable for us anymore to basically use proof of work the way we are for other blockchains, for other cryptocurrencies. It's just going to be too much. It's going to affect the environment. It's going to affect climate change. It's going to affect pollution. And it's way too much computing power for us to handle. So as an advantage to proof of work is decentralization. We can rest assured that people that are on the software or on the blockchain that are trading every single day are also the ones that are verifying transactions using specialized software and all the information that I stated. So they are proving their work, and they are proving that they are honestly working by doing the mathematical work to show us that the transaction should be added to the blockchain. The disadvantage is all the computing software that goes into verifying a single block. And also, another disadvantage is that there's so much competition in actually receiving the reward. And as the Bitcoin halving is happening every 4 years, we're seeing that difficulty target get higher and higher for crypto miners to be able to solve and verify blocks and actually receive rewards. The other thing I want to say about proof of work and why it might not be feasible for the future is what happens when the last block is mined? What happens when there is no more Bitcoin to get rewarded with? What happens to crypto miners? What's going to be their incentive? What's going to be their goal and their drive to verify and protect Bitcoin's blockchain? If there's nothing else to mine and everything's already out there, it's already in circulation, the circulation power is already at 100% and all Bitcoin coins are out there, how are we going to continue to verify and trust that the blockchain will be protected, will be decentralized, and we don't have to worry about hackers or anybody coming into the blockchain to kind of tamper with your data? So that's another thing about proof of work is it feasible for the long term? When Bitcoin reaches its max of coins that have gotten sent out, which I believe is like 21 million, which isn't even a lot of coins, where do we go from there in regards to protecting and verifying and keeping transactions safe? There's no incentive anymore for crypto miners. Would we have to change the incentive? I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? Do you think proof of work is going to last in the long run? Do you think it's going to be feasible for the long run? What do you think the blockchain is going to have to do in order for crypto miners and validators to continue to have interest to protect the blockchain? Let's shift gears and let's start talking about proof of stake. So proof of stake is kind of attempting to be a solution to proof of work, which again has its advantages and disadvantages. In the simplest of terms, what proof of stake is trying to do is on certain cryptocurrencies, you can stake your coins and in return become a validator on the platform. So, for example, if I had a ton of money and I have invested a lot into Ether or Solana, for example, because I know for sure Ether you can stake. I've actually staked in my portfolio a few cryptocurrencies. I'll have to look right now and see which ones I did. But for this example, I know for sure Ether you can stake. So let's say I stake my Ether coins. What that is telling you and what that means is I am basically taking a risk on the coins and the assets that I have and dedicating them to the blockchain. So in staking my coins, and the more coins that I stake that are eligible to be staked, there are only certain coins that are eligible to be staked, the blockchain may consider me a validator, meaning I may get requested to become a validator. And in being a validator, I am able to confirm and verify transactions. The whole point of proof of stake is the more that you risk of your own assets, you then become a trusted validator because you are risking your assets. In risking your assets, you will receive rewards after verifying transactions like the native coin, new coins, you might receive more Ether, stuff like that. The whole kind of point and plan of that was to avoid all the computing power that it takes in proof of work consensus mechanism. So the only issue with proof of stake is centralization. So after, let's say I have a ton of money, like I said, and I'm staking all my coin and I'm becoming a validator, well, now that I'm a validator and I'm verifying the transactions just basically by viewing them and signing off on them and then confirming them and sending them out back to the blockchain, I am receiving more coins. So in a way, the disadvantage is it's almost as if the rich are only getting richer in proof of stake. There is a chance of centralization because you need X amount of money to be able to invest. And then as you've invested X amount of money and you're staking it all, you're essentially putting it into the blockchain, you're putting it in and risking it so you can become a validator, then you are validating transactions and making money or receiving coins through that validation. So not only are you a top competitor or you're a top trader, but then also you're receiving special rights for being a top trader and for staking X amount of coin, and then you are receiving more money in return. So if that makes sense to you, it's simply the richest people that are staking the most, that have the most money, that are investing the most, staking the most, are then granted validator status and then have the right to sign off on transactions and verify that they are legit, and in return, you are receiving more incentive. So to me, I think it's just a rich getting richer phenomenon, but they also in proof of stake have slashing. So slashing is basically a protocol that can help wean out people who technically have bad behavior, meaning they aren't being 100% honest in verifying transactions, or they are verifying transactions with ill will or ill intent. So there is a protocol in place that holds people accountable. The difference for proof of work with that is there are tons of miners on the public blockchain that are verifying transactions with you. So if you, and this goes back to the whole double spending thing, because proof of work was trying to prevent double spending, because instead of one person regulating everything and just saying, oh yeah, based off your record, you owe me $20,000, and only that person knows your record, all crypto miners in proof of work can see, oh, Sally sent Vanessa $10 and sent Danny $10, but she only had $10. So as they're going to verify transactions, they can see and make sure that double spending is not happening, because multiple people are watching and regulating, not just one person who could then slyly turn around and cheat and say, oh, we're going to verify this because, it's going to give me 20 grand, for example. A proof of work holds people more accountable and holds honesty. And to try to counter that with proof of stake, they offer slashing, which is a protocol that monitors people who are verifying the transaction. So personally, I am stumped on both of them. Anyways, actually, let's talk about proof of activity, because proof of activity is both proof of work and proof of stake coming together. So proof of activity is everything you would know in proof of work in the beginning. So the miner receives the new block, all the information needed in the block, and it is solving that mathematical puzzle to find the matching hash that the difficulty target and the blockchain criteria or blockchain technology is looking for to verify that transaction. Then, once the mathematical puzzle or the generation of hashes has been confirmed, it passes on to 5 validators. So this is where proof of stake comes in. So if you are staking your coin on this specific blockchain as well, then you may be considered a validator. So there are 5 validators. What's really interesting in proof of activity is it's based off of voting. My camera just died, which is good because I want to be able to recap on the points that I'm trying to make here. But essentially, proof of activity is just proof of work and proof of stake put together to try to solve all the electrical and computing power issues that we're having in crypto mining, and also trying to solve all the centralization worries that we're having with proof of stake. So there also is proof of capacity, which I'm going to talk very briefly about, but proof of capacity is, instead of using a special software and specific computer software to crypto mine, you can actually just use your computer's hard drive, and the hard drive will pre-compute potential matches or potential hashes that will verify a block. So the whole point of proof of capacity was to try to diminish the ability of proof of work and all the computing power that comes into it. So it's not to say that proof of activity can't work. I think proof of activity has a good basis and is really trying to present a solution. I think it might need proof of capacity in order to help. So I want to give an example that I read on Investopedia. Obviously, take it with a grain of salt, but I think it was a very good example. And it was talking about how if I'm trying to win the lottery, proof of capacity could basically generate pre-numbers or pre-codes, if you will, that I should play in the lottery. So it would pre-generate for me potential solutions of what I should play to win the lottery. The same thing goes for proof of capacity. Before a block is even put out into the blockchain, or as soon as it's put out into the blockchain, your computer's hard drive and proof of capacity is already working through presenting you with potential hashes that could match that block and verify the transaction for you. This is 1, faster, 2, going to be less energy that's needed in order to compute solutions and verify transactions. It's going to help keep everything as decentralized as possible because we're still following the principles of proof of work in regards to solving mathematical puzzles or, guesstimating. Basically, proof of capacity is that the computer is doing all the guesstimating for you. It's already pre-generating things for you, so you don't have to adjust the nonce and keep trying to recompute things and all that energy usage on your computer. It's just faster and easier and less energy usage. So I think if we applied proof of capacity with proof of stake, with the regulations in proof of stake, meaning that you could only be a validator for X amount of time, so there's not a fear of centralization occurring and the rich just getting richer, then I think proof of activity could actually be a potential long-term solution towards consensus mechanisms on the blockchain. So I want to switch gears. I want to talk and close this episode out by talking about Zcash. So I'm sure you might have heard of Zcash before. If not, you're in the right spot. But Zcash is just like any other cryptocurrency, except with Bitcoin and Bitcoin's blockchain, you have access to everything. You have access to all the transactions, public keys, you have access to the amounts that are getting sent. What Zcash is trying to do is have fundamentally all the same processes. So you can buy and sell cryptocurrencies, you could buy and sell ZEC, which is the coin for Zcash, but you have more privacy in regards to the amounts that are getting sent and your public key. So when all the transactions are hosted on the blockchain and visible on the blockchain and people are seeing them, they can see bits and pieces of the transaction. They just cannot see your public key and the amount that you're sending. This could be really good for banks, for example, if banks want to be exchanging information or making transactions, but they're fearful of hackers and scammers and knowing how much money they're sending, knowing their public key. Even though it's not their private key, it's not good for anybody to know, especially if you're a big corporation or a big institution like the bank, for example. So, and also in Zcash, if it needed to be audited or eventually if the SEC is like, hey, we need to regulate this, you can go unshielded. So then there's basically a program setting where everybody's information can also be seen if it's needed to be seen. But Zcash just offers more privacy, even more privacy for people on the blockchain. And this doesn't affect the mining process or the proof of stake process or any verification process. You can still verify transactions. It still gives you the information that you need. Like I said, if needed, you can go off ghost mode, if you will, or off shielded mode, and you can see exactly what you need to see on the blockchain, depending on who is regulating, what form of regulation they're doing. But essentially Zcash is just more privacy. It's more privacy on a blockchain for you. I want to go over some notes with you guys. Let me see here. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, so the way they do this is ZK Snark 0 technology that allows for your public key and your amount that you're sending to be encrypted. Some people also like this for online purchases and just simple things where you just feel like people just don't need to know all the information that you're putting out there. But of course, if necessary, you could see that information if regulation or somebody needed to monitor it, it wouldn't affect the verification process and keeping the platform decentralized. As of today, January 19th, 2025, Zcash is at about $50 per one ZEC. So it's doing pretty good. Its all-time high was in 2016, and it was at like 5,300. And then obviously it just hasn't gotten much attention over the last couple of years, but it is a good contender for people who want more privacy while still having all the benefits of a public blockchain per se. So I bought a little bit of it. I made a note to talk about it, but I bought a little bit of it in my portfolio. I'm curious to see where it goes. In the last year, so from 2024 to 2025, it's seen an increase in 116%. So definitely this past year, it's gotten much more attention again, which is interesting. It got a huge influx of attention, not so much over the years, and now we're seeing a huge influx again for Zcash. So I do think the public might be waking up to it more and the benefits of it more. Its market cap is $828.3 million. And the circulating supply is at about 16.3 million, which is around 76%. So 76% of the coin is already in circulation, meaning it's already being traded, it's already accessible. So, and I think that's everything I wanted to say. Yeah, that's everything I wanted to say about it. I use Coinbase for all my trading. So what's nice about Coinbase is they give little templates and explanations of each coin that you're about to invest in and kind of the history about it. So if you're curious, you can check it out there too. We talked about a lot today. There are, of course, more consensus mechanisms that we could touch upon. I think these ones are the most important. And my overall final stance is I think we have a lot of potential with proof of activity, but I think it takes a little bit of every single consensus mechanism that we've seen and used to implement into one that will be sustainable for the environment, sustainable for the user and multiple users without any sort of power struggle. And we just need a faster verification process, which proof of capacity may be able to offer us. Please let me know down below if you have a comment or a question. We will get it answered on the next podcast episode. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Oh wait, also before you go, my camera died, and when I went and took a break for a second, I realized that TikTok is back on. So I don't know what's going on with the banning process, but hopefully President Trump is doing something that can issue us a long-term solution so businesses can get back at thriving in the economy. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for my next episode. I'm Vanessa Hurley, and this is Cryptic Humility. Have a great day.